Good morning, Legal AFers. Good morning, Midas Mighty. Good morning, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo. We are in week 4, day 13 of the Trump criminal trial for falsification of business records to interfere with the 2016 election. Yesterday, we heard testimony from Donald Trump's former controller at the Trump Organization for 40 years. Jeff McConney testified. We also heard from the current accounts payable supervisor, Deborah Tarasoff, who's been working at the Trump Organization during the relevant time period of this criminal trial and is still working there as of this day. You mentioned yesterday, Karen, during our recap that she reports directly to Eric Trump. So Eric Trump deciding to show up in court on that day. He was also there during Hope Hicks' testimony. Also, Alina Habba was apparently in the courtroom yesterday. But it seems that if we're talking about this trial in phases, the first phase, weeks 1 through 3, we're talking about the underlying conduct by Donald Trump to interfere with the 2016 election, the catch and kill scheme. We heard from different angles. David Pecker, who ran the National Enquirer, Keith Davidson, who represented 2 of the women who Donald Trump engaged in the catch and kill payments with, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. We heard from Hope Hicks inside the tent of the Trump campaign and then the Trump White House, including statements by Donald Trump to her asking her what he thought her views were on the fact that Cohen had basically made those payments before the election, and with the story coming out later in 2018 versus coming out before the election in 2016, how Hope Hicks viewed that. And so that's kind of phase 1. Phase 2, it seems like we're getting into the cover-up, the falsification of the records. And as you expected, and you predicted, Karen, perhaps not as, exciting, if you will, from the testimony of the characters like Hope Hicks and Keith Davidson and David Pecker, who were enthralling and intriguing. But I think even more important, the testimony we're seeing this week and yesterday from the controller of the Trump Organization, the accounts payable, going through the invoices, showing how reimbursement payments were made, showing handwritten notes from Alan Weisselberg to Jeff McConney, seeing Jeff McConney's handwritten notes. I mean, heck, take a look at these handwritten notes we saw yesterday. Let's go back to the first one that's on the account activity ledger. That's Michael Cohen's bank account for the shell company that he created. And it really just, this is between Weisselberg's notes and then McConney's notes, the former chief financial officer and controller, like just going through the math on what these numbers were. I mean, how it's $130,000 payment for Stormy Daniels that Cohen made and reimbursing him that. There was this $50,000 payment that Cohen also needed reimbursement to some entity called Red Finch, which was alleged to be a payment to basically pay polling companies to give favorable polls to Donald Trump. You see below the language about grossing that up, multiplying it by 2 to get to your $360,000 number. You add in a bonus right there, and then you get to, that $420,000 number. McConney talked about the various checks that were paid to Cohen. There was one time, even during cross-examination of McConney by Emil Bove, where Emil Bove was asking him about services rendered. And it was an interesting moment that was reported by Klassfeld and others, where McConney said, "You mean reimbursements?" We were reimbursing him for the payments that he had made. So we went over documents like this. Then we heard from the accounts payable supervisor, Deborah Tarasoff, who talked about the protocols and business practices within the Trump Organization, how hands-on Donald Trump was. Any check over $10,000 had to be approved by Trump, Eric, or Don Jr., how Donald Trump would sign these checks, how Trump would look through everything according to Deborah Tarasoff. And again, she works there to this day. So that's where we're at right now, Karen. A few notable points as well. There were 2 times, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, where Trump's lawyers complained that they were being sandbagged by the district attorney's office in how the DA's office would call these witnesses by not telling the defense team the order that they would be called. But you had McConney, who's worked at the Trump Organization for 40 years and testified in at least 2 or 3 other proceedings. So how do you not know what McConney's going to say? These are your own corporate records of the Trump Organization. And then Deborah Tarasoff works there now, and her lawyer's being paid for by the Trump Organization. So how are you complaining that you weren't prepared for her testimony when you're paying for her lawyer, apparently? So, Karen, what'd you make of yesterday? And then what should we expect today?
The more I think about it, that Eric Trump was sitting there today, or he's been there, I think, twice, right? He was there. I don't know if he'll be here today, but he was there yesterday, and he was there one other time that I'm aware of. But the more I think about it, that he was sitting there all day when those 2 people testified, it just reminds me of when I used to prosecute gang cases, and that there'd be witnesses that would strategically, they'd be testifying, they were tricky, they were scared, they didn't necessarily want to come in and say certain things. And the gang would send people who would just sit in the courtroom and just watch. And I don't know, there's just, why Eric Trump yesterday? Why was he there when the 2 people who worked for him, one of them currently works for him, was testifying on the stand? And maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe he was just the only family member who showed up to support his father. But I mean, it'd be one thing if Trump's entire family was there every day. His wife wasn't by his side. His children were there. You could imagine Tiffany, who's a lawyer, she could be there helping out, right? No, it's the one person who is the boss, frankly, of the 2 people who testified. I don't know. Something about it just felt wrong to me. And like we're watching, sending a message like we're watching. And when you think about it in the context of your own life, it's powerful, right? The person who signs your paycheck and who's your boss that you've worked for 3 decades. Like, it's hard to do. I mean, look what Hope Hicks did. She broke down crying, I think, at the gravity, knowing that what she said was so powerful. And she broke down crying and had to take a break. So I don't know. I just didn't like it. It felt very, very sending a message yesterday. Anyway, that document that you pulled up is extremely powerful. The one that you were just talking about, this bank record that has the handwritten notes. Salty, if you wouldn't mind putting that back up again. And that was a key piece of evidence that came in yesterday. And it came in through Mr. McConney, because Alan Weisselberg, we don't think, is going to testify because he's currently incarcerated. And he, who knows if Trump will call him, but I don't think the prosecution's going to call him. He's testified several times now. Once when the DA's office prosecuted the Trump Organization and there was tax fraud conviction, he testified there. He also testified in the Arthur and Goron case and perjured himself. So he's kind of useless. He doesn't give up Trump. He lies. He admits to lying. So I'm not sure the prosecutor will call him. But frankly, if he's as innocent as Trump's as innocent as he says he is, you would think Trump would call him, right? Because Alan Weisselberg is everywhere. So on that document, the reason McConney was able to put that in was because that's Alan Weisselberg's handwriting down at the bottom, and they are considered co-conspirators. And so that's an exception to the hearsay rule, and that's why that came in. There's a couple of points to this document that I want to point out that some people have commented on. In particular, Ryan Goodman from Just Security he tweeted, I should say, that that the reason that what's interesting about this document is two things. Number one is that look at what this handwriting is written on. It's written on the bank account showing the $130,000 hush money payment, right? Like you could have written this criminal scheme anywhere. You could have written it on a piece of paper, on the back of a napkin. You could have written it on anything, but no, it's actually on the document that shows the bank account that was opened for the purpose of this. It looks like it was opened the day before. It looks like it was opened only for this particular wire, right? 130 went in, 130 came out. It indicates, as Ryan said, that this bank account was set up for this sole purpose. And I just think that that is so incredibly powerful when you look at it. But again, where's Weisselberg? And that's going to be the thing that I think that the prosecutor is going to try and set up every single detail that they can prior to Michael Cohen testifying, so that the daylight between what Michael Cohen says and all of the evidence, that you don't have to rely on Michael for really anything, because we know that they're going to go after Michael hard, that he's going to be cross-examined like crazy. They're going to go after him for all sorts of things. And so I think the rest of this week is going to be setting up for Michael Cohen's testimony, who I could see him testifying perhaps at the end of the week, maybe next week at some point. But sometime in that time period, they're going to corroborate everything they can of him with the falsifying business records. So yesterday was the beginning of as you said, the part two, the falsifying business records piece of this. And the problem is, so far with the falsified business records, we haven't had a witness say, Donald Trump told me to do it this way. Donald Trump said, do it like legal fees, but don't do it, but we're going to pay him back, even though it's not legal fees. That's going to come from Michael Cohen, clearly, that Donald Trump did that directly. But that piece of paper, that exhibit that came in, that bank statement with that scheme on there, is really the key, because you've got the money in. You've got the $130,000 that went in and went out to pay her off. But on that document, you've got the conspirators saying, but this is how we're going to frame it. This is how we're going to show it. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to gross it up. We're going to add these other monies on there. We're going to, it spells out the conspiracy right there. And the other witnesses provided the detail that Donald Trump is a micromanager when it comes to his money, that he's the only signatory to the account, that Ms. Tarasoff, who still works there, testified that he often would reject checks if he didn't like it, or somehow didn't think it was the right payment, or he didn't just sign all the checks. He really paid attention. And so it's clear that Trump was part of the scheme. It's clear that he was. Then I think the prosecution's done a really good job of that. But don't forget, they've still have to prove that he intended for there to be false business records. And I don't think that the defense saying, well, he doesn't know about the drop-down menu, because that's how the testimony that came in yesterday was all about, that there's a drop-down menu and we just picked legal fees because Michael Cohen's a lawyer and Donald Trump doesn't know about this computer program. It kind of doesn't matter whether he knew about the drop-down, because, unfortunately, that is the false business record. But the fact that Trump was involved in, let's hide it as something other than what it is. That is the key here. And I think the prosecution is getting much closer to showing it. And I do think that document is key to it. And I think that that's what we're going to see today. We're going to see more witnesses that are going to prove the actual false business records crime. I think we also might see Stormy Daniels this week. I think she might go before Michael Cohen, but we'll see what they do. But that's what I think we're going to see more of today is more witnesses that are going to help just prove the money in, money out, and the false records, and maybe who delivered the checks to Trump, and did anyone see him look at the invoices or whatever it is, those types of witnesses. That's what we're going to see.
Every one of the steps that Trump and then with Keith Davidson representing Stormy Daniels, David Pecker's involvement, when we heard about the conversations with Hope Hicks, we know that Donald Trump wanted to keep this secret. We know he wanted to conceal it. What's interesting, whatever this is, obviously we know it was that Donald Trump was having sex with Stormy Daniels, and he was cheating on the woman he was cheating on, Melania, with, Karen McDougal, with Stormy Daniels, and he wanted to keep it, all secret. The interesting thing, Karen, is that the defense has not fully embraced or really embraced something that could be rather simple and potentially appealing. And it's because they have Donald Trump as a client, which is just to say, look, Donald Trump did have sex with the porn star. Donald Trump did have sex with Karen McDougal. Donald Trump did authorize Michael Cohen to pay them. And then he did want to reimburse Michael Cohen, but it was really just a mistake when it comes to the classification of it, because we just didn't know what to classify it as. They're trying to do that, Karen, without being honest about the underlying conduct. So it makes everything look that much worse than a lie, and then kind of demonstrate that he's lying about everything, which he is, versus just embracing what he did. Look, he's a scumbag. I mean, this would be the ideal defense if you were trying to do it. He's a scumbag. He did all of these things. He did it while Melania was pregnant, and he wanted it to be reimbursed. And NDAs are very common then. This was the early 2000s. There weren't all of these laws about NDAs. We screwed up the classification, and we're sorry about that. But he's not. He's denying. He's pretty much denying it all, but trying to, I don't know, backdoor what I'm trying to say without fully saying it. And I just think that makes it, I could be wrong, but I just think it makes it that much worse, where I'm trying to look, I think Donald Trump's as guilty as can be. I think it's my duty here in hosting shows like this to try to do my best to understand where I think you could go, what I think arguments are. But to me, that's the piece that I think is crushing him, is that he's a liar about everything. And it's obvious he was trying to hide this and be sneaky about it, because if you weren't, you would just embrace what you did and say, it was a different time period, and you'd have Melania show up and you would say, look, we're good now. We screwed this up back then. I'm a different person, but he's the same person. He's worse. So anyway, did anything I just say make sense, or am I just?
Yeah. But no, it makes sense. But interestingly, the Melania thing, it still shows he was trying to hide it, right? It's, in other words, it either way, he's trying to hide the source of this money, and either way, that's a false business record. One's a felony, one's a misdemeanor. But if the prosecution says, "Oh, he's not saying he wasn't trying to hide it," okay, so I got him on that. But I don't buy the Melania part. I think it's election related too. So therefore, it's the felony. I think the better defense is a mistake. I really thought, that it was a legal fee. You pay your lawyer, it's a legal fee. I wasn't really thinking, I wasn't intending to falsify a business record. I just was figuring out a way to classify it. I think that's the better defense. But who knows? Who knows what
he's still trying to cover it up today. Like, he's still, even to this day, trying to pull one over the jury, and thinks that is, I think, challenging the intelligence of the jury. Now, again, as I said, I don't know what I don't know what a jury's ever going to do, but there are so many. I'll toss this last question to you, Karen. If I'm there and I'm observing the jury, which granted I'm not, you were in the courtroom though, but having followed this, there's so many moments especially trying to track. This is what the prosecution said they were going to deliver in the opening. This is what Trump's lawyer said in the opening. And I think Trump's lawyer said, everything you heard is false and it's a lie. There are so many moments, including Donald Trump potentially falling asleep in the courtroom. But there are so many moments that I just feel like if you're an intelligent juror investing time in this, where you would feel that he was offending your intelligence. This isn't Fox News world where you can launder it through Hannity and dress it up. Like, you're in this courtroom in an evidence-based way. I just feel there are so many moments that even if you are inclined for whatever reason to want to be like, hey, I support this guy, whatever the reason, I don't want to find, you'd be like, yeah, he's just freaking lying to my face right here. I don't know. Do you get that vibe that there's just some moments when it's like, you lied to me. You lied, and the prosecution keeps pointing it out.
Yes. I mean, there was an excellent point that Caitlin Collins made on CNN tonight, which is that there's a tape, there's a recording where he denies, where a reporter, I think with AP, asked him, I think it was on Air Force One, whether, asked him about these allegations, asked him about Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, and he denied knowing anybody. He denied, I don't know these women, I don't know anything. And meanwhile, Hope Hicks testified he'd already told her about it. And so he clearly lied to the American people right then and there. I want to find, I just heard it last night. Caitlin Collins said it. And I want to find it and find that tape, because that's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And that goes to what you were just saying about lies, and juries aren't going to like that. The other thing I think that the jury's thinking is how sleazy the world is that he travels in, right? It's all sleaze. It's all like, and it's more than just sleaze. It's all like, it's a life of lies. It's not even just lying to the jury, right? His whole life is built on lies, whether it's catch and kill, whether it's make shit up about his opponents, whether it's make positive stuff up about him, that he's the healthiest politician ever, or whatever that weird headline was, or he lies to his wife, he lies to his mistress, he lies to his whole, just everything. Like, he lied on the NDA, calling himself David Dennison or whatever it is. He's just, everything about him's a lie. And that is the part that I think the jury's going to be like, I don't believe him. He's just so sleazy. And that's what's coming out here. I think Salty found the clip. Salty, you want to play it?
Do you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth or allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
So it's just interesting that, again, according to Caitlin Collins last night, and we'll look into that, but that he'd already told Hope Hicks about it, yet he's there lying. So I just think the number of lies also, I think, is going to have an impact.
Well, there's a lot of layers to this thing, right? There's, the overall kind of demeanor and constant lies and the kind of stench of those lies in the courtroom. There's the evidence that's being presented. There's Trump exiting the courtroom and just continuing to whine over and over again. But we're covering it from all angles here. We'll see what happens today. We're moments away from court starting. Remember, at the beginning of trial and at the conclusion of each day at trial, Aaron Friedman and I will provide coverage predicting or giving a summary of what we expect and recapping what took place. We're in day 13 today. Remember, there's no trial tomorrow on Wednesday. Court is dark on Wednesday, and then it will resume again on Thursday. So Tomorrow, there'll be an episode of Legal AF with Michael Popak and Karen Friedman Agnifilo, recapping everything at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. But there won't be the Karen and I morning and afternoon recaps. But we'll see you soon in the afternoon. And buckle up. Should be another eventful day today. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe right now. You may think you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, but you may not actually be subscribed. It's free to subscribe. So just find that subscribe button and hit it, and then you'll be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to Legal AF on audio wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll keep you posted throughout the day. Keep checking back on our channel. Have a good one.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.